How you doing? This is John, and welcome to John's Long Box. There's a late video today because my work schedule has changed. I've been working nights, and when I got home, I just fell asleep. We worked extra hours, so I apologize for that. I try to have them up as early as possible. Here we go. We're talking about the Micronauts, number one, 1978, and the artists on the cover is Dave Cockrum and Al Milgrom. This is a treat for me, and I love this comic. It was inspired by the toys of the same name. Apparently, Bill Mantlo opened up, or his son opened up, some Micronauts toys as a child, and Bill Mantlo saw his kid playing with them, and he fell in love with the toys also, and begged Jim Shooter, we got to get the license to this so I could write some comics. And here we have the first issue of that. So, Mego Toys, Mego Toys made Micronauts in Japan, and they came to America, and it this 1978 Star Wars was a big deal at the time. So, of course, they had like a Star Wars type feel to them. But the premise is that they're Micronauts. They're so small that they live on molecules, as if molecules were planets, and their whole universe could be, a couple of molecules in somebody's bedroom or something like that. The science is kind of hokey. Later they change it that the act of shrinking passes you into another dimension, so it doesn't matter where you are in the universe. If you shrink, you're going to end up where these guys are fighting Baron Karza. Baron Karza is their evil Darth Vader character. Well, I'll just give an introduction to the characters, then I'll get into the comic. So this is Baron Karza. He is a human inside armor, and what he's doing is he's ruling their micro molecule planet with an iron fist, and he takes undesirable people and steals their body parts to give to people who can afford it. So in this world, the super wealthy, the super important people, the celebrities, they get to live forever. They could swap out used up body parts for better body parts, and that's how he came to power, by offering this. And then, of course, these people are rebelling against it. This is a Kroyer. They are a race of warriors. They're non-human, and they're given armor at a certain age, I think, when their body stops growing, and they're kind of like welded into the armor. And they come from like a Sparta type world with the strength and combat and everything like that, the code of honor. So they're the embodiment of the word people. I just thought this was cool. And there's a Micronaut Baron Karza toy. There's a Micronaut Kroyer toy. This was based on the space glider Micronaut, and this is Arcturus Ran, and he's the leader. He's the Luke Skywalker Han Solo character mixed together, and when the Marvel license ran out, he went with Marvel because I think they only referred to him as a space glider once, and so Arcturus Ran, the character, is owned by Marvel. This is Marionette. I don't know where she came from. There's no toy called Marionette or anything, and she's the princess. So she's the Princess Leia character, and Marvel owns her too. And then Marvel owns these three, so they could appear in Marvel Comics. These can't because they're owned by the Micronauts people. And this is Bug. I have no idea what Micronaut toy Bug was based on, but because he does look like one, he's not named after one, Marvel owns him. And he actually had a one-shot, and now he joined the Guardians of the Galaxy. So I wonder if he'll be introduced in the next Guardians of the Galaxy movie. But that's a background on the character. So there we go. That's the Spider-Man. It wasn't an action figure. It was just permanently in this position. It had a flashlight. It could, had like a web that could drag things. And if you wanted, you could buy a helicopter. I just didn't like it because it didn't move. It was like basically a statue with tricks. So Stan Lee presents the Micronauts. Bill Mantlo, the writer. I talked about Bill Mantlo. He was a super successful writer for Marvel mostly. I don't know if he did any DC comics. But later on in life, he suffered a traumatic brain injury, and I think he's still alive. I might have passed. I got to look that up. but he lives in like a adult assisted living facility because his brain is so damaged he barely even recognizes anybody, and apparently they think he was assaulted, so he's afraid of men. So he only has these like female nurses that he responds to. He doesn't even respond to his own family. It's really, really sad. I'm getting teary eyed just thinking about it. And Michael Golden, phenomenal artist. Oh, just a legendary artist. That's one thing this series of Micronauts had some of the best art. Joseph Rubenstein, embellisher. Embellisher is just a fancy word for inker. Al Milgrom is the editor. Al Milgrom, I like hit me on my hands. Are always constantly dirty. Al Milgrom was an editor who took a lot of risks. He edited the Epic line and I think the Marvel magazine line. Just a guy always looking for something new and interesting. And Jim Shooter is the editor in chief. He's got the position that Stan Lee had. So here's a great opening splash page. Tom Orzetsky, the letterer, and Glennis Wynn is the colors. So again, this is old school coloring. You can see the dot matrix over here. This is done, the dot matrix, I think this is done by the paper itself. You put water on the paper, and the amount of water it releases in the dark, but everything else is done by traditional. So this is the beginning of experimentation with non-traditional coloring. But here, Acroyers, this is exactly what the toys look like. For the love of Dolan and my prince, the Acroyer Air Patrol dog on here. So the Acroyers are bad. They work for Baron Cars as an enforcer. Just look at this, just wonderful artwork. And here, it's Star Wars, you know what I mean? These guys might as well be stormtroopers. And you could tell he was given toys as reference. These look exactly like the toys. Space battle going on. What's going on? You know, I don't know who's good, who's bad, or whatever. These guys are guarding this blonde woman. The Acroyers are upon us. You know, these might as well be the rebellion versus the stormtroopers. Hopelessly outnumbered. Wonderful darkness and light. And then she makes it home, and you find out that that's Marionette. Okay, so she's like the princess of this micro world. This is Microtron. This is the R2-D2 character, also based on a toy. So most of these are based on toys, but Microtron. And this is Prince Oberon. That's Marionette's sister. I forget her real name, but they call her Marionette. And he's based on a toy called Force Commander. And I as a kid, I was like, oh, they call him Oberon. Oberon is who could that be? You know, that was part of the thing, because I had the toys at this point. So later on, he debuts as Force Commander, who was the he looked like Baron Karza, but all in white. So just this reminds me of Bill Willingham, another one of my favorite artists. And then this is the Time Traveler. The Time Travelers, the Micronauts, they came in like a one pack. They were the cheapest of the Micronauts, and they were kind of like translucent, and they had this like gold snap in, I don't know, like girdle thing, and they were just cool looking. And you know, in the comics it was funny because they took the most plentiful toy and made it like the rarest appearances. So in Star Wars terms, because that's the only way they could compare them, these were like agents of the Force. They would show up as like hope, give cryptic messages and stuff like that. So these two of Prince Oberon and Marionette are hoping to get help from the they were called the Enigma Force. So you go figure, the Force. And the Enigma Force, their time traveling agents would aid them. So a time traveler here, my brother, you've summoned the Enigma Force. You would not have called upon such power unless, oh, Argon, no. You know, they know the end is nigh. So here they are. The Baron's dog soldiers have found us. Baron Karza. So this is a Hydra. I remember one Christmas getting this toy, and it came with a time traveler. Like I said, they were the most common of the Micronauts, and they snap in here and they fire these rubberized missiles. So I opened it up, put it together, started playing with it. Then it was time to go to church. Oh man, that was like the longest church ever. Just waiting to go home to play with toys. It was torture. So he fighting, they even look like the rebels from Star Wars. But I like the way they do the blasters for freedom. Scream, my prince. So it is the prince. He still lives. Such as my order, Shaitan. So they capture him, and they're gonna, presumably use him for the body banks. And this is Baron Karza, and this is Prince Shaitan. He's the evil leader of the usurper of the Acroyers. His brother is simply called Acroyer, and he's the one that joins the Micronauts. But that's his evil brother, Shaitan. And this is Baron Karza in like a centaur form. He had a horse. I think it was called Andromeda, and the Micronauts' gimmick was the interchangeable. You could take them apart; they're modular, and with magnets, they would all click back together again. So you could just, make Baron Karza a centaur figure, or as a little kid, that was so cool. This had like a missile that popped out. More ads, and now Chapter 2. Homecoming. This is the Endeavor. I don't think they ever made a toy of this. It was bizarre design for spaceship, but it's kind of classic. And then this section would pop out, and they called it the Astrolab, which was a Micronauts toy. So I don't know, maybe in Japan they did have a toy of this. But here comes the Endeavor, just like warping out of space. It's opening up. Just like the Millennium Falcon. Commander Ran. Yes, son, I'm Arcturus Ran. And like I said, he was called he was based on the Space Glider toy, but they barely ever referred to him, and he barely ever used the components of the Space Glider. So they got away with him being an original character. So here's the dog shoulders. The dog soldiers are opening fire, and he's escaping, and he gets blasted into a nightmare. So here he is. He gets taken prisoner. R2-D2 toy, Star Wars action figures. I mean, this was 78. Star Wars Mania was in full swing. Here he is thrown into a prison, and all the captured aliens are looking at him. You are jokingly referred to as the pleasure pits. Look at this visage. And then he's about to be attacked, and he gets pulled up, and then somebody else slam. And that's a Croyer. He's like the dour, honorable, strong but silent guy. And that's Bug. He's like super agile. He's insectivoid, and he gets stick to walls, and always reminded me of Nightcrawler. And he has like the same kind of hands and feet, and he's kind of like more of comedic. So he's like, these two are opposites. So these two are already friends. Now they saved Arcturus Ran, and that's what he looks like underneath the mask. He takes off the mask later on. He removes his helmet later on, and they're forming a plan to escape. And they're looking out the window, and they see Micronaut doing a string dance, and that's how she gets to the marionette. She puts on this makeup and this costume and does these dances so people don't think she's a real person. And so she's like hiding right under the dog soldier's eyes. Yep. So they think the girl is a roboid. Because, but actually she's, and he's about to blurt out the name, and Croy is like, as ever, you talk too much, little one. So here they are in the prison looking at, she's beautiful. Escape. So here we're seeing Baron Karza on his throne with Prince Shaitan next to him. I think this toy was based on a Croyer 2 or something like that. And everybody's watching Marionette and Microtron do the dance. These were hooded advisors to the Baron. And I forget what this was called. Death Tank. But this was based on a snap together toys of other toys. You could make this thing, assemble this thing. So here he's gonna just, gladiatorial games. Baron Karza's immensely cruel. Jaws 2. More grit. And here is instead of a letters page, this was pretty clever. They give you an introduction to all the characters. So Commander Octorus Rand, Marionette, Princess Mary of Homeworld. That's the name of the planet. Very imaginative. She's of the royal family. Baron Karza, Homeworld's chief scientist and overseer of the body banks. Karza has offered the microverse immortality for a price. So that his influence grows until he's like the real power behind the throne. Bug, master thief of the insectivoid race. They just made him up whole cloth. Acroyer, Prince of the Acroyers. His name is unpronounceable. His fearsome face is never seen, and he fights with Spartan ferocity to regain his throne, stolen from him by Prince Shaitan. Biotron and Microtron. We haven't seen Biotron yet, but he's the C-3PO smart figure. This is the R2-D2 doesn't speak thing. And the Shadow Priests. Who are the Shadow Priests? And the Time Traveler, of whom we've not said anything. So who are the Shadow Priests? Pizzazz. I already talked about Pizzazz. I just love this. Get a BB gun. Buy a BB gun. It was a different time. So, the death tank rolls and just starts firing and just starts blasting and killing. And he's like, whoa. He got knocked down by the force. Not a courier, though. So now they, leap into action. He has this rocket lance. He would bang it on the ground and it would fire explosive charges. And he would either use it to hit people or hold on to it and it would propel him, jump around. And so he jumped when he gets a bomb, but he throws a bomb into the death tank. Karza, they're escaping. Because, of course, Prince Shaitan, fear not, for my somewhat nervous ally. All goes according to my plan. So it blows up. You violated. You have weapons. Okay. So then a courier just jumps in, and he's super strong. So he just goes and starts smashing everything. And he's like, wow, who are these people? And who? I have many names, Commander, but I have lived all of them. Some call me the Ignitive Force. But you shall know me as the Time Traveler. And now, Commander, I think this time has come to make good our escape. So this is there one? Is the Ignitive Force just one being? Is it a million beings? But it's a Time Traveler, so both could be true. Okay. Safety wing for your Whoppers. So when you put this on and you eat Whoppers, you will be safe. But you have to put this on and eat the Whoppers. Otherwise, you'll get smashed by a car, and that would be horrible. And here's another thing. They put so many cool little Easter eggs, like this writing. Bill Mantlo made up a script. And you could decipher messages. And later on in one of the issues, he gives you, like, the alphabet. So then we went back and started reading all the hidden messages. This is like graffiti. So he's just like, this is part of your plan. This looks like chaos. You know, so send in the Acroyers. So here, this is what the toys look like. You can see Michael Golden's very energetic style, kinetic style, is rendered stiff because he's just copying from 3D models at this point. And here he's running. Acroyer's just smashing everything. And like I said, this is just so reminiscent of Star Wars. You can see the buildings in the background. The three rebels are making it off. He's grabbing Acroyers out of the sky and just smashing them. Takes one of their swords, and now he's armed. He's like, Dallin and Sepsis, these are like the founders of the royal family. They became like a religious icon. Get aboard. They'll be swarming all over us in seconds. What did you say? Karza's dog soldiers. Wait, not those names. Dallin and Sepsis were the first to defy Karza almost 1,000 years ago, Commander. They paid for their folly in the body banks. And since then they've been deified. They are the symbols of the resistance. By all that's holy, they were my parents. Yes, I know. So, if you remember Vance Astro from the original Guardians of the Galaxy, he was put in suspended animation and sent to Alpha Centauri, and woke up 1,000 years later to find out that warp drive had been invented in that 1,000 years, and they had already explored the galaxy, and his mission was symbolic. But you know, he still was a great explorer, but they did it first. Say with Octorus Rand, he was in the Endeavor, and he explored the microverse for 1,000 years, and he was in suspended animation. So his parents, Dallin and Sepsis, sent him out to explore, to get allies and mission of peace. And when he came back and woke his body, so he has like the same story as Commander Rand. I don't know. I found that story fascinating in both characters. I just like that idea of their brains are active, the ship is doing the exploring and recording, and then their body has woke up. So he has 1,000 years of memories in a 35, 40-year-old body. So his energy sword lights up. He meets Biotron. Biotron is I think he projected his consciousness into Biotron, and Biotron did all the so he lived through Biotron's body for 1,000 years in the Endeavor, doing all the maintenance and everything that needed to be done. And computer verifies it's a patrol armed and fast. That's Biotron's face, and they're warping out. Look at the laser blast just missing, and there's a portal we're going through. We don't know what to do here. You see the microverse, the planets are connected, and they're going through a portal to Earth. Don't you dare miss our second sense-shattering issue. So when they get to Earth, if I could just turn this page, they're Micronauts. They show up the size of toys, so they're a couple inches tall on Earth. So if a human was to go to the microverse, what happened a few times, they're giants. They're huge. And if Micronauts come to Earth, they're the size of toys. And as a matter of fact, that's what happens next issue. They show up on Earth, and the little kid disguised finds them, and of course he mistakes them all for toys because they're all passed out from the rough warping. And he picks up a Croyer, and he's like, "These are cool toys," stuff like that. And then the Croyer punches him, whatever. And I think that's where he breaks out his space glider. Had this pack, and you push the. I love the space glider. Was my favorite of the Micronauts. He had this. So he looked like this kind of, but he also had a helmet, and then you push the button on his backpack, and these fixed wings with plastic wings would come out, and he had a toy gun and everything like that. It was so cool. I love this. I mean, this was epic for me. I remember the first 12 issues was one big long story of liberating the homeworld and fighting the machinations of Baron Carson. It was so good. I used to run on the way to school. I told you before, my mom would give me $1 every day, and I'd buy a comic book. Sometimes I'd buy two. Back then, when they were only 35 cents, so I'd get 2 comics, and then I would have 30 cents for lunch. And I think I would have I'd get like a pizza bagel and a chocolate milk or something like that. I was able to afford that. I left that. I graduated out of that school. All comics were 50 cents, so I'd get one comic book a day or whatever. So but there was a candy store right next to my school, and if they didn't have the comic, the next day I'd take a different path and go, and there was 2 other candy stores that had comics. So there was 3 places that I would just, on my way to school every day, just scour looking for comics, and hopefully if one had it, if one missed it, another one had it, because there was no pull lists, there was no well, you could subscribe, but I was a dumb kid. So, but the hunt was part of the fun. Oh, my friend Carl found it over here. So the next day we'd go to that store and hope there would be another issue. And if, I'm sure I missed issues back then, but we would read each other's copies and fill in the stories. And sometimes we'd find issues, like say 7 before we'd find issue 6. It didn't matter. It was so much fun to collect comics back then. And the hunt was part of the fun. And then filling in the gaps in the lore. But I'll come back to the Micronauts, tell you the secrets of the time travelers and the secret of Commander Ram and everything like that. But this was so good. So I think this lasted for like 60 issues, and it still holds up. I reread them about 5 years ago. They still hold up. They're still a lot of fun, and top quality artist. Bill Mantlo did the whole series, and then it finally got canceled, and they did a Micronauts X-Men comic. Believe it or not, this was one of the top sellers at the time. And then they brought back the Micronauts: The New Voyages, which was pretty cool too. And then they lost the license, and Image did an 11-issue Micronauts. They could use a space glider, but they couldn't use Arcturus, Ran, Marionette, and Bug because these 3 are owned by Marvel. And they did a similar run. They tried to make the art look as similar to this as possible, and then that got canceled. And then I think Devil's Due Press did a Micronaut, but I don't know what happened to that. It came out sporadically. I think it died on the vine. But this was Micronauts. This was so much fun. And it's worth getting. I don't know if Marvel still has the license. I don't know if they ever reprinted it. So this might be a tough thing to actually track down and read. But if you do find it, if there is a reprint, let me know in the comments. And you got to read this, especially the first 12 issues. It was just such fun, so good, and it holds up. Okay, well there you go. That's the Micronauts. This was a blast. Okay, please like, please subscribe. All right, thanks a lot. Bye bye.